All right. So let's just dive right in. Let me guess, you've started before. You've had the plan, the willpower, the good intentions. You stocked the fridge, organized your schedule, maybe even bought a new journal or downloaded a new habit tracker. And for a while, it worked. But then life happened, stress hit, the routine got off, motivation disappeared, and suddenly you found yourself right back where you started, frustrated, discouraged, and wondering, why can't I just stay consistent? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. Because the truth is, the way we've been taught to stay on track goes against how your brain and body are actually wired. So, what if the goal wasn't perfect consistency, but resilient rhythm? What if falling off track wasn't failure, but a signal that something deeper needs to shift? So let's talk about what that shift looks like and how the world's healthiest communities do it differently. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm Kelly Nelson, author and holistic lifestyle coach, and this is week 6 of our 10-part series. Start where you are, 10 steps to reset for real life. This series isn't about chasing perfection or squeezing yourself into someone else's version of wellness. It's about something deeper, creating a lifestyle that actually supports you. Because here's what I know to be true: life gets messy, it gets complicated. And whether we realize it or not, the messiness affects every part of our well being, physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. Now, most of us are doing the best we can in systems we just don't that just don't support us. We're living on autopilot, reacting to stress, trying to stay afloat while juggling everything, and wondering why we keep falling off track. And that's why I created this series, to pull back the curtain on what's really going on behind the scenes and to give you a real science backed, heart centered tools to begin shifting it. Now, each week we explore a different piece of the puzzle, and each week I'll meet you right where you are with empathy and honesty and with steps you can actually take. But this isn't about doing more, it's about building a life that brings you back to yourself over and over again. So let's dive in. But before we dive into today's conversation, let's take a moment to zoom out, because everything we've talked about in this series so far leads us right here. In week 1, we started with the foundation. We looked at what holistic wellness really means and how our daily habits, environments, and unspoken beliefs shape the way we feel. You learned that we're not failing, you're just living inside a system that was never built for your well being. In week 2, we busted the myth of willpower. You saw how willpower fades under stress and how lasting change comes not from pushing harder, but from creating structure and support. In week 3, we talked about the biology of sleep and stress. You discovered how hormonal shifts, blood sugar, and cortisol are affecting your rest, and how small daily rituals can help bring your body back into rhythm. In week 4, we pulled back the curtain on emotional patterns. We reframed self sabotage as your nervous system doing its best to protect you, and explored how emotional wiring often overrides our best intentions. And then in week 5, we began the shift from awareness to action. We explored 6 powerful lifestyle changes rooted in the habits of the world's healthiest communities that you can start to realign your life with with your values. And now here we are in week 6, and the question becomes, how do I make it stick? How do I hold on to these changes when life gets messy again? Because it always will. And the answer is, it's not more motivation, it's not rigid discipline, it's rhythm. So let's talk about why rhythm, not perfection, is the key to building a life that supports you, even on the hard days. We'll start with something most wellness advice skips over entirely, and that is your body is not built for hustle, it's built for rhythm. And when your life is out of rhythm, your body feels it, even if your brain hasn't caught on yet. So you might notice it as constant fatigue, no matter how much you sleep, or mood swings or irritability that seem to just come out of nowhere, cravings that sabotage your best food choices, trouble focusing, staying consistent, or following through, or feeling wired but tired, like your body is running on fumes. These aren't personal flaws, they're signals that your internal systems are out of sync. So let me explain. Your body and brain run on rhythm, literally. Your circadian rhythm controls your sleep wake cycles, hormone reset, release, digestion, and energy levels. It's your body's master clock, and it's set by things like natural light, meal timing, and even when you move your body. Your heart beats in rhythm, your lungs breathe in rhythm, your brain waves shift in rhythmic patterns throughout the day, from alertness to rest and back again. Even your organs follow a pattern through something called ultradian rhythm, which cycles roughly every 90 minutes and influences your ability to focus, rest, digest, and reset. So when your daily life ignores those rhythms, when you skip meals, stare at screens late into the night, and push through fatigue, and expect your body to be on all the time, your biology fights back. It's not because you're weak, but because you're wired for something different. So think about it. We wake to alarm clocks, not sunlight. We skip breakfast, chug caffeine, and race out the door. We work through lunch. We stay glued to screens and bright lights late into the night. We eat dinner at 8 p.m., fall into bed, and do it all over again. This isn't rhythm, it's chaos disguised as structure. And eventually that rigidity breaks down. And when it does, we don't blame the system, we blame ourselves. We say things like, I can't stay consistent, or I always fall off track, or I just don't have the willpower. But here's the truth. You're not broken. You're just living in a system that goes against your biology. And if you've ever felt like you can only thrive when everything is just right, the perfect schedule, the perfect motivation, the perfect meal plan, it's probably because your nervous system is starving for rhythm. Rhythm isn't just a wellness buzzword, it's the foundation for how your body heals, how your brain habits, how your brain builds habits, and how your emotions stay regulated. Without rhythm, everything feels harder than it has to. But when you live with rhythm, your body knows what to expect. When your environment cues ease instead of chaos, something really powerful happens. Your energy stabilizes, your cravings quiet down, your sleep improves, your focus returns, and your body starts to trust you again. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally living in sync with the way you were designed. Now, maybe your story looks a little bit different. Maybe you're not caught up in the hustle anymore. Maybe the kids are grown, the job is behind you, the calendar's cleared. No more alarm clocks, no more deadlines, no more racing out the door before the sun comes up. And after years of dreaming about this freedom, you're finally here. But instead of feeling peaceful and grounded, you feel adrift. Because even though your old routine was stressful, it gave you structure. You got up at the same time every day, even if it was way too early. You had meals around the same time, commutes to make, people depending on you. There was a rhythm, even if it wasn't a healthy one. And now you sleep in, but still feel tired. You graze all day, but never feel nourished. You find yourself filling time with distractions, not purpose. And some days you wonder, what should I be doing with myself? You longed for quiet, but now that it's here, it feels a little too quiet. You wanted freedom, but now it feels like you're floating through space with no gravity to hold you. So let me be clear, this isn't about laziness. This is your nervous system searching for rhythm, for anchors, for something steady. Because without structure, even soft, gentle structure, your body doesn't know when to rest, when to recharge, or even when to feel accomplished. You don't need to go back to the grind, but you do need something new to fall back on. And not just any routine, but one that feels nourishing, grounded, and true to this new version of you. A rhythm that brings you back to yourself. And believe it or not, that's exactly what the world's healthiest communities have mastered, not with apps or checklists, but through something much more natural. So let's take a look at what they're doing differently. Because while many of us are caught in the chaos of too much or the disorientation of too little, there are places in the world where people live with remarkable ease, longevity, and vitality. They're called the blue zones, the 5 regions where people live longer, healthier, and more connected lives than anywhere else on Earth. They are Ikaria, Greece, Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Loma Linda, California. These people aren't chasing wellness. They're not obsessing over trackers, supplements, or schedules, but they are doing something that we often overlook. They live in rhythm, not rigid structure, not over optimization, just a natural, nourishing flow to their days. So let me show you what that might look like. In the blue zones, rhythm isn't forced, it's just built into the fabric of daily life with morning movement, not workouts, but walking, tending to gardens, light chores, and stretching outside. Midday meals are shared slowly, often with family, friends, or neighbors at roughly the same time every day. Rest periods, afternoon naps, breaks for tea, time in silence or nature to reset and reconnect. Spiritual practice, daily moments of reflection, prayer, gratitude, or just purpose. And evening rituals, slow dinners, conversation, time spent with loved ones, winding down with intention, not screens. What's important here isn't what they do, it's how they do it. They're not trying to be consistent. They're just living in a way that naturally brings them back to center because their environments, routines, and cultural expectations all support rhythm over performance. They don't need to remind themselves to slow down. It's expected. They don't need to schedule in connection. It's embedded in community. And they don't need a to-do list to eat well, move daily, or rest because the flow of their life already makes space for it. So here's the real lesson. They don't rely on willpower to stay on track. Their lives are designed to keep bringing them back even when they drift. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that all sounds amazing, but do these people even have jobs? And it's a fair question because most of us live in a world of commutes, Zoom calls, deadlines, emails, and endless to-do lists. It's easy to look at the blue zones and think, sure, I'd be calm and healthy too if I didn't have a 40-plus-hour work week and kids to feed. So let's clear this up. Yes, blue zone residents do work. Many are farmers, artisans, shopkeepers, or caretakers. They work hard physically and mentally. But the difference is their work is often woven into the rhythm of their life, not something that disrupts or hijacks it. They walk to work, they take breaks, they come home for lunch. They don't glorify being busy all the time, they honor being present. And if you've ever traveled to a place like Spain, you've seen echoes of this. shops and restaurants literally close down in the afternoon. People rest. They connect with family. Dinner is served late, not in a rush, but as an event to enjoy. That's not laziness, it's rhythm. It's a culture that values flow over force. And then there's Loma Linda, California, right here in the US. These residents live in the same modern world we do. They have traffic, deadlines, and smartphones. They've chosen to, but they've chosen to build a different kind of life within it. Loma Linda is home to a large community of Seventh-day Adventists, a faith group that prioritizes wellness as a spiritual value. They eat mostly plant-based diet. They unplug for a full day each week. They move regularly, nurture strong social connections, and live with a deep sense of purpose. In other words, they created their own rhythm in the middle of modern life, and it works. So no, you don't have to live in Sardinia or Nicoya to reclaim your health. You can live in the middle of 21st century chaos and still choose a life that brings you back to center. Because this isn't about geography, it's about intention. We're not trying to copy the blue zones, we're learning from them. Because whether you're working full-time, newly retired, or somewhere in between, the lesson is the same. It's not about doing life like they do. It's about designing a life that brings you back to center in the middle of the life you actually have. And to do that, we have to understand what keeps pulling us off track in the first place. Not because your lack of willpower. It's not that you're just not consistent. It's that most modern habits are being built inside systems that your brain and body don't feel safe in. So let's be honest, if information alone could change our lives, most of us would already be living like wellness pros. We know what we should do: eat better, move more, stress less, sleep more. And we've tried it over and over again. But here's the question I hear all the time, and maybe you've asked it too. Why can't I just stay consistent? And the answer is both scientific and surprisingly compassionate. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack discipline. It's because your body and brain are being asked to build something new inside a system that feels unsafe and unpredictable. According to Charles Duhigg's Power of Habit book, the habits are formed through a three-part neurological loop. The cue is a trigger, a time of day, a feeling, an environment. The routine is the behavior, the action that you take. And the reward is the payoff, relief, energy, connection, escape. Your brain loves this loop because once it's established, it saves energy. It becomes automatic. It feels safe and familiar. But here's the problem. When we try to insert a new behavior into an already stressful or chaotic environment, that old loop just doesn't disappear. In fact, under stress, the brain defaults to whatever is most familiar, not what's most helpful. This is thanks to your amygdala, your brain's fear center, and your HPA axis, which governs your stress response. When your environment feels unpredictable or overwhelming, your brain says, nope, too much. Let's go back to what we know. Even if what it knows is scrolling social media, grabbing a snack, or putting everyone else's needs before your own. That's why you can know what's good for you and still not do it, especially when you're tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally taxed. Because stress hijacks habit formation. Your brain needs predictability, not pressure. Neuroscience tells us that what your brain really needs to build sustainable habits is safety and simplicity, not motivation or pressure. When your brain knows what to expect, a predictable rhythm, it stops scanning for threats and starts focusing on growth. This is called neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself through consistent, low resistance repetition. And it's most effective when your nervous system is in a regulated state, not on high alert. So the translation for this, you're not going to build a new wellness routine in a state of fight or flight. You'll build it in moments of calm, rhythm, and safety. And here's a piece of wellness advice most just completely overlook. Your emotions are not obstacles, they are information. They are biological signals, a built-in communication system between your body and your brain. Every feeling you experience, anxiety, joy, frustration, sadness, motivation, is tied to a chemical signal that tells your nervous system what's happening and what to prepare for. And when we ignore or suppress those signals, your brain doesn't stop listening. It just picks up the unspoken cues instead. So if you're telling yourself, I've got this, I'm a winner, but deep down your body is saying, I'm overwhelmed and afraid, guess which message your brain is going to follow? It's the felt truth, not the spoken one, that creates your internal environment. This is why affirmations without emotional alignment often fall flat. It's why positive thinking can feel like gaslighting when your nervous system is dysregulated. And it's why your habits collapse when your emotions aren't being acknowledged. Because if your body is broadcasting stress and self-doubt, your brain is going to act accordingly, no matter what your planner says. That's why in this series, we've talked about reframing the stories you tell yourself, not to fake it, but to create truths your nervous system can actually believe. It's not about chanting, I love my life, when you don't. It's about saying, this is hard and I'm still showing up. That message, that's believable. That's regulating. That builds trust. And trust is the foundation of rhythm. This is why rhythm matters so much. When your day has a few small, steady anchors like waking up at the same time, stepping outside, taking a mindful breath, your brain starts to trust that it's safe to create new patterns. You move out of survival mode and into regulation, out of chaos and into rhythm. And from that place, everything becomes easier, not perfect, but possible. And this is where rhythm becomes your ally, not a rigid routine, not a checklist to fix yourself, but a simple, steady way to tell your brain you're safe, you're supported. We know what to do next. Because when you create just a little rhythm in your day, a morning pause, a breath before bed, a moment to check in and check out, you stop battling your biology and start working with it. So if you've been feeling like you're constantly just starting over, like nothing ever really sticks, it's not because you're failing. It's because you never had a system that brings you back. So let's build that now. This is where everything we've talked about becomes real, livable, and sustainable because life will get messy. Motivation will fade. Stress will creep in. But when you have rhythms, simple grounding touch points woven into your day, you don't have to start over every time you stumble. You just return. Here are 5 resilience rhythms that you can start using right now. They're small, they're doable, and they're designed to work with your biology, not against it. Rhythm number 1 is define your floor, not just the goal. Most people set goals based on their best days. We're going to do the opposite. Set a floor that's so gentle and doable that you can meet it even on your worst day. Something like, even when I'm stressed, I'll walk outside for 3 minutes. Or even when I eat out, I'll drink a full glass of water first. Or even when I don't journal, I pause to breathe before sleep. These little micro commitments create consistency without pressure. And what science tells us is that tiny actions build habits faster. BJ Fogg's research at Stanford shows that when a behavior feels easy and satisfying, your brain is more likely to repeat it. Over time, it becomes part of your identity. You're not trying to be perfect, you're just trying to stay in motion. Rhythm number 2 is to create daily anchors, bookends for your brain, if you will. Your nervous system craves signals of beginning and ending. This is how your brain knows when to rise, when to rest, and when to reset. So 2 simple anchors, one in the morning, one in the evening, can transform your energy, mood, and focus. So the morning anchor, open the blinds, let in the sunlight, stretch for 30 seconds, and drink water before coffee. An evening anchor might look like dimming the lights, turning off the screens, and listening to calm music. Science says the reason these rituals regulate the reason these are so effective is because these rituals regulate your cortisol and melatonin cycles, helping your sleep become deeper and your mood more stable. And the blue zone insight shows us that in Icaria, people begin and end their days gently with light, nature, and connection. No alarms and no rush. It doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to be yours. Rhythm number 3, install a reset ritual. This one in your, excuse me, this one is your lifeline. The practice you reach when you feel off track, overwhelmed, or uncentered. It's not a fix, it's a way back. So try something like placing a hand on your heart and taking a deep breath. Or saying out loud, this is hard and I'm still here. Or making a cup of tea and stepping outside for 5 minutes. Playing one specific song that always brings you back to yourself. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it's yours. Now, science tells us that these practices activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response, which lowers cortisol and restores calm. The blue zones teach us things that, like in Sardinia, men gather every afternoon in the village square, not to be productive, but to unwind. It's expected, it's built in, and it works. The key is to use rhythm when you don't feel like it, because that's when you need it most. Rhythm number 4 is to redesign one environment cue. Your surroundings are constantly cueing your behavior. So let's make that work in your favor. Choose a space that tends to trip you up, your nightstand, your phone, your kitchen, and shift just one thing. Put your walking shoes by the door. Keep pre-washed fruit at eye level in the refrigerator. Place your journal or water glass where you'll see it. Move your phone out of reach before bed. Science tells us that these environmental cues are more powerful than motivation. When the prompt is visible, simple, and linked to a reward, your brain responds with ease. These are the tiny shifts that stack up. Your brain notices them even if you don't think it's enough. And that's the point. And finally, rhythm number 5 is to speak to your nervous system, not just your ego. Let's be real. Saying, I'm crushing it when you feel like you're falling apart doesn't help. Affirmations only work if your nervous system believes them. So instead of trying to override your emotions with hype, meet yourself with honesty and gentleness. Try to say things like, this is hard and I'm doing the best I can. Or I've come back before and I can come back again. Or maybe I'm not starting over, I'm just continuing forward. Or finally, I deserve care even when I'm struggling. These are all very believable to your nervous system. And science tells us that the brain listens to felt truth. Your vagus nerve, which connects your brain and body, responds to safety cues like validation, breath, and compassion, not pressure and perfection. So we're not layering fake positivity over pain. We're speaking safely into the system so your body stops bracing and starts trusting. So no, you don't need louder affirmations or more willpower. What you need is a rhythm your body can trust and a system your brain can actually follow. Because deep down, you already know what isn't working. If you've made it this far in this series, you already know this. It's not just about information. It's not just about motivation. It's about, and it's definitely not about trying harder. You've learned how your nervous system, your environment, your history, and your habits all play a role in whether or not you stay on track. You've seen the science, you've heard the stories from the world's healthiest communities, and you've been given real actionable steps every single week. Steps that will make an impact if you can stick with them, if you have support, and if your life gives you the space to follow through. But let's be honest, your current lifestyle is filled with chaos, distractions, and obligations. Your environment may not support the changes you want to make, and your family, friends, or coworkers may not be on board with your goals. So what happens the next time stress hits? What happens when life throws a curveball again? Do you go back to putting yourself on the back burner? Do you wait for the right time that never actually comes? Or do you start over next Monday again? Or is this the moment you decide, no more, not this time. This time I'm not doing it alone. So that's why I created my group program. My 12-week holistic wellness group program isn't another quick fix. It's a guided reset, a step-by-step process to help you build the kind of life you've been craving, a life with rhythm, not rigidity, habits that fit your values, not someone else's plan, tools that you can return to even when things get messy. And most of all, a community that reminds you you're not alone. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to yourself and staying there. If any part of you is thinking, this is what I've been missing, listen to that. Because clarity is powerful, but commitment is where everything changes. And I'd love to invite you to a free 30-minute strategy call. We'll talk through where you are, what's been pulling you off track, and whether this program is the right next step for you. There's no pressure, just honesty, clarity, and support, because that's what this journey is all about. I'll drop a link in the chat so you can schedule your call. You've spent enough time putting yourself last. Now's the time to take the next step forward toward a life that actually supports you every single day. So thank you so much for being here today and showing up for yourself. Let me put this link in the chat. And I just want to say one quick thing as we're closing up here. This is all from my own experience. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know that last year I experienced one of the biggest disruptions anybody could ever experience in their life, and that was a house fire. And it absolutely turned my life upside down and inside out and every which way. And this is how I was able to bring myself back from that. Um, I can't explain the emotional upheaval, the just the whole the disruption that that caused. I can't even begin to explain, because there was personal traumas involved. There was just so many elements to this. This is something that happens, and we can't always help it. Um, but we need to have a way to reset. And it took me a little while to get back to that, but I used these very steps that I'm telling you. This is how I know this works, because it's what brought me back to where I am today. And so I really hope that you're finding value from this. And if you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer your questions, or um, hopefully you'll join me, schedule a time, and let's talk about it, because it does work and it is real. So thank you again for joining me. I want to honor your time, and please reach out. I'm happy to talk to you, and I love talking with you. Have a great day, and I will see you next week for our 7th week of this series.